once I had this stamped, I went ahead and put them into my brother's Scan and Cut, and it cut it out for me. Now some of these my machine didn't pick up, so I had to hand trim them myself. Then once I got those all done, I went ahead and used my glitter markers to really bling those out. Don't know if the camera's picking it up or not, but they've got a nice sheen. Now I have to tell you that this was not my first go-to. My first go-to was using the Glue Arts, and you can see the sparkle from the glitter. I started doing this, and I don't know if it was me just not really knowing how to use this, but I have to tell you, they just were not turning out the way I wanted them to. And so by the time I spent putting glitter and rubbing it in and getting that sheen on it, and then either the glue being not tacky enough or too tacky, I had to abandon my glitter ones. I will try to pick that up again, but maybe with something, I don't know, a little different. But once I got to this point of here, I turned it on the back and I applied some foam tape. Now the foam tape I used was from Miss Elizabeth's, some that I had forever, and I love it because the thickness of this is really good. It's not too thick and it's also not too thin. Now I was in Dollar Tree and they had some foam mounting tape there, and I went ahead and got this one. It's not as thick as the Miss Elizabeth's, but what I did when I had to use this was I just used 2 pieces of it. Now they also have some that come that's already cut into the little rectangles, and then they had some squares. They also had some 3D circles, but I have so many 3D circles I'm swimming in them. So I put all of these up on foam dots, and then I adhered them to my card. Once they were on the card, I put their little eyes on them because I didn't want to try to put foam on, peel it off with their little black eyes on there. And on some of them, I put the eyes on once they were on the card because I was having trouble again with these Nouveau Dewdrops, which is what I use for their eyes. Now, I have to tell you, it's me. I'm just going to say it's me because half the time mine doesn't want to work. So I put some on them, but instead of risking ruining it, I went ahead and squeezed out some just right here. I went ahead and squeezed out some right here so that you could see them. And then what I did when I was ready to use them on my little bunny was that I used again some of that precision tip glue, and I squirted one, and then I just took my pokey tool, lifted off my eye, and then I just sat it on to my bunny where I wanted it to go. So that seemed to work for me because I don't know about anybody else, but whether it's the metallic ones, I have just anyway, I have had better success with the crystal dewdrops. So moving on. So this part is computer generated. It was actually a lot bigger, but because I did my card as a top easel card, what I initially printed was for a landscape card, and it was way too big. I cut this out using my Spellbinder rectangle die, and as you can see, it was a close fit. And then I took some of my coordinating card, and I used the scallop one and cut that out. When I went to put this together, I actually put this one on 2 thicknesses of foam tape. I adhered it to here, and then I put 2 thicknesses of foam tape on here, and that's what went into place to be able to hold that card. So now while we're down here, let's go ahead and take a look at the flowers. I used my Susan's Garden Sizzix die, and it's these cute little branches. I shared them in a Tuesday morning haul that I did, and I decided to use this little one right here. The paper that I cut it from came from the Coordinations little carnival pack that I shared in a haul, I think, that I got from Joann's. So I cut that out. And then, because, you know, since the card was going to be blingy, I took my Spectrum Noir clear glitter marker and I glitteratied that piece. Then for these little flowers, I also took some of my extra leftover card, and what I have found myself doing, I have taken my ink pad or whatever ink I'm using and just inked over this, just to give it a little whatever. And you can just take it and go directly to it if you like, because the way they come out, you're never going to know. It's going to be so mixed up with what you punch out. Now, the little punch I used for that one, I am so sorry. I don't think I was recording when I punched these out of that little paper where I scribbled the orange on top of the pink. But basically, I just went in with this little punch and just got a few of those going. So what I did was just mist them just a little bit with my Tim Holtz little mini mister from Ranger. And if you want, you can put some mica powder in here to give them a little bling. But since I knew that I was going to use my glitter marker on it, I didn't put anything in there. So just move those around a little bit. And if the color smudges, even better. Just makes it easier to work with. So now I'm going to bring in my molding mat, and this is a molding mat from McGill. I have two of these that I'm working with, and this one is Fiskars, and of course this one is McGill. But before I go to that, let me pull in the other punch that I used to create the really large flower, and it's this one from EK Success. Same thing. I just went in and punched out some of those and mist them too. But since my mat is already wet, I'm not going to. I'm just going to rub it around in a little bit of that water. Now for this one, because I really wanted the tips to pop up like that, I just pretty much did this by pressing it into my mat, because I wanted those ends to be poofy. Then I turned it over and then just pushed it down in the center, used my glitter marker on it, which I'm going to break my own advice and use it while my paper's still a little damp. But I just went around the edges there just to give it a little bit of sparkle. And then I added a Queen and Company jewel there, and that became that. Then for my little ones, what I did was, because they're so tiny and so kind of fragile, that I didn't want to kill them by shaping them. So I just did a little press like this. And I got them as tight as I could get them without ruining them. And when I did this, I would lay, let's say, as many as I could get on my mat. And then as I shaped them, I just went from one to the other. And I did pull in my tweezers to kind of help me. Whoops, let's see, here we go. I did pull in my tweezers to kind of help me when I was shaping them on the mat, because they are so small. Then I would flip all of them over at one time because I was mass producing. And then I took the 3mm one and just pressed them on the inside so they would pop up like that. Then I took my tweezers and my glue, just put a dot in there, turned this so that it could be kind of catty-cornered, and I ended up with this. And once I got this one, I just put some of my Spectrum Noir Sparkle on it, put a little gemstone in there, and that is what became these pieces right down here. Okay, let me clear this out of the way, and finish with the rest of the card. I know, wait, but I feel like saying, but wait, there's more. So if you're still here, thanks for hanging in there this length of time with me. Now, the last thing I have to do is show you what I did on the back of the card. So here's the front, and then on the back is where I put the wishing you a happy Easter from Zachary and me with the year. So I did that using a stamp from another set that I got from Tuesday Morning. And so the stamp that I used to stamp the back of that came from the paper company Studio, and it says wishing you a happy Easter, and I used my Crafter's Companion block to do this, which is really super good. I used the Color Box Frost White ink to stamp that, and it didn't come out super dark, which was okay, because what I wound up doing was using my Sakura pen, one of my jelly rolls, and I went around that the inside where it says wishing you a happy Easter, and where I signed our names and the year was done doing this. Now, for the other part that's decorating it, I also pulled out some of my other metallic pins, and then I just went around and kind of doctored them up. So no matter which direction you're looking at, when you see this cute little card, you're going to see something fun. So that is the card that I did for my Easter ones this year. Now, I had some ready-made envelopes to use, but decided to ditch those because they were way too tight. And instead, I went to my We Are Memory Keepers envelope maker, and I used the A2 size on here, which tells me to cut my paper to 8 1/8 by 8 1/8. And when I did, I used some of that oh gosh, what was it called? Carnival paper from Coordinations. One thing that I did with these is I wanted to protect the little bead and the eyes and everything else that was on my card. And so what I did was I was in Dollar Tree, and they had some of the, foam that you can package things in. So I took some and I trimmed it down so that when I put it in the envelope, it would cover that part of my card. Now, because this is an easel card and not all my family is familiar with it, I wanted to make sure that it stood up when they opened it. So what I did was, once I glued this down, oh, I'm moving too fast. Let me back up a little bit. So for my card and my card base, y'all, I went to Kinko's and had them cut my card for me. I took in my black heavyweight card and I had them cut it this way, and then when they cut that, I also had them cut a chunk for me that would be the base of my card. And so since I was there, I had them do quite a bit for me. So let me pull the camera out just a little bit so you can see. Here is some that was cut, and when the guy was doing it, he was bending my paper, and I was like, stop it, you're bending my paper, don't do that. He didn't realize how critical this was. And then once he cut the black, I had him cut it into the part that was going to back behind my bunnies that you see. It wasn't that expensive. It was $1.50 per cut, and that doesn't mean $1.50 per sheet. You took the stack, you put it on, and they cut it, and your charge is depending on how many times they have to change the measurement. Now, if I were to do this again, I would go to Michael's, just buy a whole stack of this, have them cut it this way, and then take one of those halves and have them cut it like this, if that's what I wanted, because that's what this wound up being matted onto, and was cut beautifully straight because, the machine cut it. So you could definitely have that done. Now, let's come back in a little bit. So then I went to my scoreboard, and I went ahead and put it on my Score It, which I love, by the way. And I just centered this so that they both stopped at the 5, let's move that over, at the 5.5 inch mark, and I scored it. Now, because this is an easel card, I want to do half of the half. So then I just moved this over. So I lined it up at 2 3/4 because that's half of half, and scored it there. And that's what gave me my lovely easel card.